Next time.
I like to keep my good looks to myself.
Your voice is still on the camera.
I'm assuming Bill.
These two calls. Fred showed up.
And Tom showed up.
Hey, Fred. Hi, Tom.
Anywhere. If we need to pull that table, Nick, for Tom to be able to sit in, what? You can. The under 50 age is this way. So if you
Wait.
over.
I can't remember that far back.
Hey, Al. Hey, Al. Thank you, just phoned in.
Teacher Laura Kors is here.
Hi, Laura. Thanks for calling in. Pretty well dialed up, Victor.
I am all. We can see you. That's all that matters. The agenda's up there, so. Jim, if you also just want to go briefly through the rules about those who want to participate by phone, just first Harbor Commission members discuss, and then you open it up for any comments to the public for the specific
Make sure-
agenda.
Remember that when we get
All right, okay, yep, I can do that as well.
Do you want to moderate this, or should we run it like a regular meeting?
You can realize a regular
Just make
meeting,
sure for comment, we give these guys and general public.
an opportunity after you've
Do we
discussed.
have any general public called in? Can we tell?
On YouTube, we have just one person watching. On the phone,
We have Laura and Al.
I heard someone else ding in, but I don't know if that was a public person or not, so. But if there is, I'll interrupt from YouTube. I only see one person watching.
Flicka Regan.
Hi, Flicka.
Hi, is that JB?
Yes, ma'am. Thanks for calling in. Hope you're healthy.
Oh, I'm healthy. I was up there last week and just got home on Monday. I wanted to stay, but I had to come down here to do other stuff.
All right. It is 4:00. Victor, we're all set electronically here?
Yes,
All right, great. I'd like to call today's, the Harbor, Andy, if you'll do or Nick, if you'll do a roll call vote or attendance, please.
Tim Fletcher Rice.
Here.
Dick Schiller.
Here.
Jim Bartlett.
Here.
Michael Esposito.
Here.
Fred Rockwitz.
Here.
Tom Graham.
Here.
Al Dyka.
Here.
Laura Kors.
Here,
And Flicker Reagan.
here,
And Bill McCullough. We do have a quorum.
Great. All commission members, thank you for coming. Members who called in, thank you for doing that also. It's good to have and hear everybody's voice. I'd like to welcome the members of the general public. If you haven't signed in, please do so at the podium over there so we know who we are. This is going to be a little bit of a hybrid meeting between an electronic YouTube telephone deal and an in-person. So please give me a little leeway as I fumble through this. Been doing this since '89, and this is a first. So welcome to the new world. First item on the agenda is approve the minutes from our April 15th special meeting. They're in your packet. Are there any changes from any of the commissioners? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to accept as approved
So moved.
or submitted.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion?
you know, I do have one correction to this. I called Andy Potter and looked at Mr. Jones' phone, but the very last sentence, page 2 of the minute, Esposito also highly recommended the Army of Engineers, meaning Mr. Corps and their Army Corps of Engineers. website for information.
So noted. Tim, you reflect that change in your motion?
Yes.
Nick, in your second. Any further comments? If not, I entertain a motion to approve as corrected, which we have. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Same for opposed. Motion passes. Thank you. Approval of the agenda. Anybody have anything else to add to this? And we'll consider the agenda approved by consensus. Public comment. I'm aware of 2 different non-on-premise public comments. Is there anybody in the room that wishes to say anything that will not be covered by the agenda yet this afternoon? Now's the time to do it. Yes, ma'am.
I'm not sure. You got a letter from Carter.
Chris Chamberlain?
Is this the time we do that?
Hi, Chris.
I-
Passed the letter on to Victor and also to JB, so.
Okay, so is this our time or later?
We, we'll get to that. We do have some written comment on that, so
Thank you.
we'll get to that.
Thank you.
Anything else from members of the audience related to items not on the agenda that wish to make a public comment about?
The one public comment, Tim Napier, the one public comment I had is, as you work on Ford Park, that road going through, my concern is that if with the curves and the width of it, the boats will block it if they can't pull over. I know they don't want to be in the grass. I don't know what the solution is, but I just see that as a huge issue going forward. I just thought I'd bring it to you guys' attention.
Well, I'll be a lot smarter in 2 months. We'll keep an eye on it.
Can you say that? Denny, do you have anything to say to that?
Yeah, I think that we just had our meeting. I think we'll get together with Lucas and his group and see what we can do to improve it. Long range, we want to do something better, but to get us through this year, I think we can make something work.
There were some good suggestions at that meeting, and I think they're in capable hands, so we'll go from there.
And for the Harbor Commission members who don't know, Denny McDermott is our new Parks and Rec Director. So that's
Nice
Denny.
to meet you all.
So.
He does painting on the side. If anybody needs some work done, he's the guy to call.
And plumbing.
He did a good job on, go check out the Ford Park bathrooms. He just finished.
Jake can vouch for me. We worked together at State Park for years. Months.
Yeah, it only seemed like years to me, I know. Any public comment from anybody who called in, other than a commissioner? All right, hearing none, let's deal with the written public comment that showed up. One of them was an email I received today from Bill Brown from Harbor Springs regarding the item on the agenda for shade sales. Short, so I'll read it. It says, JB, I'm all in when it comes to supporting the local community. However, I do not think sales are quite the answer. You may recall that while he was mayor, I suggested the idea of umbrellas for the picnic tables and viewed their presence as less obtrusive and less of a view block. I advanced the idea that they would be rented and supplied by the harbor master's office. Doing so would create a revenue source that would be added, as well as shade, and an existing management team is already there to manage the process. With the addition of a Parks and Recreation Director, it sounds like this would be right up their alley, thereby allowing the harbor master's crew to focus on the harbor customers. So that's one comment, and we'll play with that later down the agenda.
Okay.
The next item of submission for public comment was sent to Victor on June 9th, on Tuesday, June 9th. Victor, do you want to read this? Want me to read it in the record?
You can read it if you haven't. It's fine. It's up to me.
It was forwarded to me on that same date. This is from Carter Williams. And he says, Victor, I have a new mooring on the outer harbor specified for 25,000 pound displacement. My boat Grayling is near, but below that limit. This boat has been in our family for 35 years, and I am a safety nut. I am unsure of the safety margin, even on the rated 25,000 pound limit. The mooring is at the edge of the harbor, so subject to more severe conditions. Plus, we tend to leave the boat in the water towards the end of the season. To maximize safety, I would like to either upgrade the mooring and tackle or pay to allow the city to do so. If I move away from the mooring, the city can keep it. And if there is a transient that might need it in the future, it allows the city to host an occasional larger vessel. Thank you for your consideration. And we have a representative from Carter here, Mr. Williams, today.
I'm the wife, but I'm not as, I brought Dan, he speaks better about boats.
Carter's boat is a Alden 44 that he's had for going on 40 years, and he's really passionate about it, as he said in his note. The boat was made to weigh 24,500 pounds, decked out, ready to sail. In the stock form, his boat is a slightly lighter variant of it, so it's not going to go over that limit, but he just wants to err on the side of safety, and if he can pay for whoever runs the moorings, to upgrade the mooring to put in a larger safety margin so that nothing would happen to the boat, he'd be happy to do so.
If he is confident his boat is under the 25,000 pound limit, why is he asking to increase the capacity of that mooring?
I'll speak to that only because I've been married to him for 25 plus years. He doesn't want to tie me in as closely. Anyway, the boat being so old and with the storms that we've had here, 3 of them in the last 10 years, he's really concerned about the damage. This is the one thing he has left from his father and mother. And he's very, very protective of it. So I think he's just really concerned that something might happen to it. It might, break off the mooring and lots of damage be done. So I think he does. He errs on the side of caution, and he's more than willing to pay for anything that would need to be done just to make sure that we protect it.
It seems to me we have really 2 issues here on the table, one for sure. From the Harbor Commission perspective, what we really have is a request from a mooring holder to alter the physical properties of, in this case, a mooring to meet the particular requirements of his vessel. I think that's the first thing we ought to address, is if we even want to consider allowing that kind of stuff and how we would handle that. And then we can move forward on the rest of this as we can go. In my 30 plus years, I do not recall an instance where somebody either asked us to alter a mooring or a dock to meet whatever their boat requirements were. Either the boat met the criteria that the city established and was allowed to use that piece of equipment, or they found some other option that met their needs better on it. So this is a first for us, and I want to make sure we proceed cautiously on it, because whatever we decide today will be precedent setting as time goes on. So I open up the table for comments.
Not knowing the particular mooring, I'm just wondering, what are the types of upgrades that is he going for? Is it something that is going to require a lot of structural change to that, or are we just talking about putting a heavier bit on the structure that hold it, or?
Tim, I think the particulars of how this thing would be physically accomplished are the second thing that we would deal with. The first one is, do we want to allow city renters of moorings or docks, either under the harbor patrol stuff, to be altered for a particular individual to meet whatever their needs of their boat are? For example, what happens if a fellow comes in with a 50-foot boat that weighs 50,000 pounds and he's willing to pay to put in a mooring that would hold that? We say yes to this, how do we say no to that? That's one scenario you can easily paint in this picture. And if we had 10 requests for these a year, I'd say maybe we need to revisit how we have this whole thing structured, but that isn't the reality.
What's the highest rated mooring that we do have?
It's the 300 series,
Right.
And we specify the boat fully equipped with fluids, gear, should be under 25,000 pounds maximum.
So, and the boat is under that. Again, Carter's unsure of what the safety margin is on that current mooring. So if it's rated at 25,000, what's the margin on that? And he doesn't expect that the mooring would be his in perpetuity if he does this. He would just like, if he could, to put mooring replaced with a larger
What
mooring.
what the boat weighs, I think is step two on this. The first one is, he's asked us to, irrespective of what the boat weighs, for him to alter that physically to provide a safety margin that he feels comfortable for whatever reason that is. And I think that's the question we have to deal with first at the table.
JB,
This is Al.
Go ahead, Al.
We've discussed what the real limits are on those moorings many times, you know, as we've upgraded and maintained the moorings. And I know that we're over-engineered on those things. There's plenty of safety margin designed into those. And well, I think if we got into starting to change that per request, we're going to get the state back in here messing with us. And, you know, we've already done these calculations and it works. I just don't see why we should change it. If he has a boat that's too big for our mooring field, he should take it elsewhere, is my opinion. The limits of that mooring field are well known, they're published, and we've never let anyone else do this. That's my opinion.
Thanks, Al. Somebody else who called in wanted to offer a comment?
that was me, Flicker. I would sort of understand what Al said, and that does make sense. I had not looked at that perspective. But what I was saying is, he had said he'd be willing to pay for it. But the other issue that I would have is if he pays for it and specifies and respects it out, who has liability for that mooring damage occurs to his vessel?
Good question.
Anybody else at the table have any comments? Yes, Michael.
So there's a couple things. I think one that from your conversation, we really haven't had this request in the past. I think it would be complicated if it was a dock. So a mooring is one thing to change. If someone came in and asked for a dock to be changed, a wider finger pier, whatever, that's much more difficult to back up when they leave, because when someone leaves, they just leave. So you have a commitment to try to figure out how to undo whatever they did. Now, maybe in the case of a mooring, you wouldn't undo it, so this is simpler, but if you expand it into a dock, it's more challenging. The other part would be the mooring, the actual weight at the bottom, obviously helps hold the boat down, but the point of failure will tend to be the road, which is attached to the buoy, or the shackle, or the swivel, or something that's closer to the top. So upgrading the entire mooring from the weight up helps, but the road is still, I assume, the owner's responsibility, and that's the highest risk area of that kind of setup. So just upgrading the mooring may instill confidence in someone, but it certainly doesn't solve the problem.
Uh-oh. This is Laura, you guys are gone?
No, we're still here, Laura. We can hear you.
All of a sudden, you're dead. Okay.
Any other comments from the table?
I just think we should keep everything uniform because the staff that takes care of those and maintains them, if you keep getting odd hybrids there, it'll just be more time for them. Maybe a little confusion.
So are we still talking about the upgrading or just the boat? Because if he's under that amount of weight, do we care that fuel and water go on it, which makes it more than that amount of weight?
Laura, let's, I think we ought to limit our discussion right now on whether we want to allow anybody, not just this particular applicant, the opportunity to change the city's physical, either moorings or dock or whatever piece of equipment we're talking about to meet their particular needs. Let's deal with that first, and then we can go on to step 2 on this.
Okay.
From my perspective, I see this fraught with a number of issues. And probably the biggest one is the precedent we set as a municipality to allow some individual to petition the city to build something for them that is particularly suited to their deal, which puts the onus of maintenance and record keeping follow through on the city's back instead of on the individual's back. We have had a very successful and still continue to have a system that has worked for a long, long time in here since those moorings have been put in. And the reality is if what we have to offer doesn't fit your particular need, then you need to make some other accommodations. And there are 2 private marinas in town that do that. Bay Harbor has spots, City of Petoskey has spots, there's lots of other places to go to have this happen. And I'm personally, I'm not in favor of us being in a position where we could make it, I think, really tough for the administration to keep up with what's happening down on the waterfront. So I'm personally not in favor of this.
I think the issue that has come up that has made me consider my position is the one of liability. When you start modifying it, you have different engineering standards for different things, then where does that put the city financial responsibility on this?
Certainly a concern.
I'm sorry, I
Yes,
just
ma'am.
have a quick question.
Mhm.
When you're referring to the onus of responsibility or the liability, I guess, insurance-wise, if we're willing to pay whatever contractor you use to instill whatever mechanisms you currently are doing, I'm not sure how that would alter the liability since we're still going through whoever you would be using upon whatever directions they would manufacture what it is they're gonna put in the ground. Secondly, for the responsibility or onus of the, paying attention to the paperwork, it's all in the same place. I mean, I don't see this, the one thing I see and agree with is it's a special request. And do you really want to open yourselves up to requests from every Tom, Dick, and Harry that comes in here? I don't want to make your job harder, and I don't want special treatment from the standpoint, I don't want it to cost you anything, I don't want to make it a hardship for anybody, office or clerk-wise, or for Mike to have to pay attention to. So that's not what I'm looking for. If we're going down that path and you feel that this is something that's gonna make it difficult for everybody or set some type of precedent that's negative for the city, we don't want that. We just were trying to make a safer location for the boat. Obviously, if you can have a mooring, it's a lot easier than putting it in a slip, which we've done for 8 years. We don't have our own dock, so we would prefer the mooring. But if you're saying that you don't feel that, this comes to that type of level of wanting to make an adjustment, I'll understand. But we don't want to make it more difficult or make hardship for anyone.
Appreciate that comment, man. I would say liability is one concern, not the overriding concern from my perspective.
But I don't understand how this would alter the liability if we're using your.
It may not. That was a comment from a commissioner, that's his opinion, and I respect that. We don't really know because we're going into uncharted territory from that.
Yeah, I kind of
perspective.
got that, sorry.
Where we aren't going into uncharted territory is the fact that we'd be setting a precedent for other requests of similar nature that may not be as close to this limit as we're dealing with right now. It might be significantly different down the road, which puts us in a tougher spot to deal with. Doesn't put us in a spot we can't handle, but it's one that makes it more, I think, complicated for us and less equitable because we've treated everybody else the same since we put those moorings in over 35 years ago. And that has worked quite well. From my viewpoint, that's what bothers me the most about this is what we're setting up for the future. It may not come on our watch, but it might come on somebody else's. Our job is to look that far down the road we can. Any other comments from the table? Then I would entertain a motion to either support or deny the request by the Williams family.
I'll move that we deny the request at this time.
Second?
I'll second.
Gotta be faster than that, Al.
Sorry, I'm sleeping here.
Motion's been made to not allow the request from Carter Williams to amend or adjust the mooring to fit the needs of this boat as he's asked for. Any further discussion on that? If If not, Nick, I'd ask for a roll call vote.
Tim Fletcher Rice,
Yeah, make sure I've got this right. A yea is that we deny the request.
Right. The motion was to say no.
Yeah.
yay. Fred Rockwitz,
Yes.
Dick Schiller,
Yes.
Jim Bartlett,
Yes.
Michael Esposito,
Yes.
Tom Graham,
Yes.
Flicker Reagan,
Yes,
Laura Coors,
yes,
and Al Dyka.
Yes,
Motion carried.
Great. So there will be no alteration of the mooring due to this request on that. The second item that this email has brought up deals with the weight of the boat and the concern by the applicant to want to increase his safety margin for whatever reason on that. I did a little research on the Alden 44, and dry weight of that boat is 24,500 pounds, according to the manufacturer. But it carries almost 2,100 pounds of fuel, water, and waste, in addition to sails and other gear that normally go on a boat. So the Harbor Commission does not act on what boat goes on what mooring, or whether that boat meets the moorings requirements. That's part of administration. You set the rules that say no boat should displace more than 25,000 pounds on that. So I would leave it up to the administration to determine whether this boat actually fits on this mooring and then respond appropriately to Carter Williams. So, yes.
I can speak to that. Carter spoke extensively with Alden over owning the boat for 35 years, and they used the dry weight label when they built that boat in the 80s to say the boat is entirely ready to sail minus personal gear. So that was water, fuel, sails on the boat, and it would only be the personal gear on the boat that would make it heavier. And then his particular model is a lighter weight version than the standard Alden 44, so that ready to sail weight is less than the 24,500 pounds that is advertised online.
That may be true. We're not manufacturing this boat anymore, as I understand it.
No, but we have the spec sheet for it.
Yeah, and I've seen the spec sheet on it, and it does say 24.5 for displacement on it. But it does not say that that's a wet weight. It says it's a dry weight. And in this case, I think there's probably a 3,000 or 4,000 pound difference in that boat. So all I'm saying is it's not our decision to make at this table, but they may want you to weigh it. Because what we don't want out there is a boat that you tell us weighs
Neither
X,
do we.
and it weighs X plus, and then we have a problem. In which case you'll have to make some other accommodation, and we'll go from there. So I appreciate the request. I hope you understand why we said what we said. It's not that we don't want the boat out there, we just want to make sure that it fits and fits under the parameters that we have. Any other comments about where we are with that one? Great. Old business, Little Traverse Bay Ferry Foundation update.
All right, take it.
Which one of you 6 people want to talk?
I'll take it as you.
Thanks, Adam.
All right, so where we're at right now, our boat's in Chris's shipyard in Lansing. It's getting painted, redoing the engines and things like that. We're planning to actually launch it in Muskegon and bring it up on its bottom. If you care to join us. We would like to have it up here sometime around next week, Thursday. It's supposed to splash. It's coming up. We've got an overnight spot for it already set. Let's see what else we have there. As far as logistics, that's pretty much where we stand there. We plan on doing a christening opening event on the 24th. And then it turns to the public the 25th, the 27th Saturday, we'll do a grand opening, and we'll publish all this to you guys as well, so you have it in writing. But logistics and timing, that's where we're at. The only issue we have, our dock is scheduled to complete the 26th and then follow with install. So I'd imagine we need a 3 to 5 day buffer, that being the suggested T-dock. So we can talk about that. And that's pretty much where we stand currently. And then if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer too.
Seems to me in our last meeting, we anticipated that the dock might be somewhat delayed, and there was some discussion at this table that we would help find some other place for these guys to go, whether it was if they'd like to go to a private marina or if they wanted to use the end of the 2-hour dock for a couple days, and it appears we're at that spot. Would anybody at the commission have a problem if we allowed them to use the end of the 2-hour dock for pickup, drop off for 2 or 3 days or whatever it takes till we get the dock built over in here?
Makes sense.
I think that was your preferred spot, wasn't it?
And we could finish this sooner anyway. It might not even be necessary, but it'd probably be 5 days max is all I would anticipate.
I don't have a problem. As long as it doesn't run in past the 1st of July, where we, hopefully are a little busier. I think we're fine with that, and we'd like to help you make this work, so.
Much appreciated.
I think by consensus, we're all okay with that. Huh? Fred, it's hard to read your eyes. Your mask is almost.
Jim, I think you should just ask for anyone on the phone if they,
Oh.
yeah, you can't see their eyes.
Anybody on the phone have a problem with the ferry company using the end of the 2-hour dock for a 3 to 5 day period if necessary?
Not me.
No, but this is Laura speaking, and the only thing is, when I was reading the notes, there was still a parking thing. Is that part of this conversation?
So,
Danny or Evan, you want to talk, or
yeah, I can talk.
Chief is here, was here, there he is.
You want me to talk about
If they're using that dock, that again affects parking, and I'm glad for them to use the dock, but I'd like that not to be an issue.
So Laura, your concern is use the part where they park when we're using the 2-hour dock for that,
Exactly,
that brief,
yeah,
maybe 3-day period in there.
right.
I'll speak then. Basically, those cars would be the same as if they're there longer, they could be ticketed, is what it's gonna amount to.
The chief says if he gets a free ride on the ferry, they're fine.
Is that a year? No.
Laura, did you hear that? That they're gonna be handled at the parking lot behind the harbor master's office, just like they would with any other vehicle, just like they will be at Ford Park where that dock is in operation down there.
Okay,
The key here is they will be, hopefully, we don't need to do this, but it shouldn't be more than a 2 or 3 day event down there, where then they're back to Ford Park.
well, great, I'm glad I could get started, so, okay, thank you.
Had we said something before about, the places at Ford Park not being used for ferry service?
We did, and I think I was just a little powwow with an update from Evan on this, and they've got a plan to, in fact, why don't you address that? You can tell them.
Sure, what was the question?
JB, would you have them speak into your speaker or closer to us, because he's hard to hear?
Yes, I can walk over there.
Yeah.
I walk over there.
This is
Hang on, Laura.
Great.
Oh, fancy. What was the question?
What's the parking plan down at Ford Park?
Oh, the parking plan for Ford Park, we have a lease with Michael Behrman, the superintendent, as an overflow, and it will be designated similar to how Irish is borrowing some of that space currently. And it's a structured lease with a payment. We are paying for that.
This is the school.
This is school
Up on
system.
the hill.
Yep. So that's an overflow lot. We hope, the premise of the project is there would be a net reduction in parking. So I just want to make sure everybody kind of doesn't forget that aspect as well. But we do have that overflow situated with superintendent of the school.
And also, Fred, their employees won't be parking at Ford Park either. If I heard you right.
Yeah, no one's allowed there.
Yeah.
If my employees park there, I hope you give them a ticket.
So, let's get this started. In no way would the parking that, as it's been used in the past, be affected by the ferry service?
Nope, not whatsoever. We would be utilizing none of that land space other than patrons at a picnic table, walking down the dock, that sort of thing. No automobile traffic relative to us whatsoever.
Well,
But that's not controllable.
It's
Yeah,
not
but I think
controllable,
what
of course,
you-
but as far as we can control or what else.
you won't be prohibiting your customers from parking at Ford Park, but they'll be subject to the same parking regulations as every place else. You will be prohibiting your staff from parking in that area, and you'll be directing your customers through website communication to ride their bike or get dropped off or use the school if there's an overflow. But Fred, if we see a ferry customer come into Ford Park, Mary Jane's not gonna tell them they can't park there if there's a legal spot available for them. And they will get a ticket if they're past, 2 hours or 3 hours?
3 hours.
3
And we will be monitoring probably a little bit, just because of multiple variety of things.
It's also, I'll add, that's part of our staff training in that to help our patrons
I think it's
establish.
Or
It is for.
This is Chris Chamberlain here with the ferry. If I
may jump in, our staff, there's no reason for them to park or be on that side of the bay. It starts on the other side. It's overnighting on the other side, so they start and end their day on the other side. There's no reason for them to be on that side with a vehicle other than the boat. So there shouldn't be, it just logistically makes zero sense to begin with, but we'll make sure and specify, we'll make sure it's very, very clear that they are not parked in Harbor Springs whatsoever. And of course, exactly as you said, that people are subject to all the existing laws and regulations regarding parking.
I'm not driving around picking up my crew and all these different dogs, they'll start with dog speed.
Does that answer your question, Fred?
Yep.
And Laura, in your case, there may be a few more cars behind the harbor master's office for a few days if that dock isn't done, but they won't be their employees, and we'll just have to deal with that while that time period's.
Yeah, no, just wondered, I read it in the notes and I wanted to know, so that's good.
Great. Thanks, Evan. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the ferry guys? Wish you good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ford Park dock installation, we pretty well covered that. It is being built. Cody Carmichael is doing his best to push this along. We hope to have it in no later than 28th, and with any luck, maybe even a couple of days sooner. We just have to see what happens.
Chair Bartlett, I just want to, we forgot to go to any public comments for the
Oh.
previous one, and I just found one on YouTube from Councilmember Leo. Supporting the ferry company for a short period of time is the right thing to do. So.
Tell John thank you,
Thank you. Us as well.
wherever he is. So any questions about the Ford Park thing? If you haven't been down to Ford Park, it is wet with the high water. And while we were down there at this meeting at 3, about a 15-inch sage came in, and it was wet right up to our toes, and we were standing on the road. So it's going to be an interesting year down there. Next on the agenda is for old business is electrical pedestal installation. Michael, maybe you can bring us up to speed on what's been done or what yet has to happen.
Sure can. We were able to get that project started early April because we're considered an essential business and because we're performing safety type upgrades, we were allowed to get that started. And that was also considered as part of a maintenance program as well. John and his guys from Squire Electric got a dozen pedestals installed, but the issue now is that they can't get the balance of the pedestals from the supplier in Florida because they can't get the breakers they need to complete the pedestals from a company in Mexico. Right now, they're 93,000 units behind in the breakers built. So we're probably looking at coming back to that project in the fall, rather than disrupt it if we get it in the middle of the season, disrupt any power supplies to boats on the dock. And the pedestals look great, super clean, they don't take up a whole lot of space. They raise the faucets probably a foot off the ground, so they're not right down at foot level. So it's going to work out really well.
They look real nice.
Yep.
And they work well. Any questions for Michael on that? So we may not see those things this year. We just have to deal with it as it comes in. Last time on old business, quick update on high water. As of 7/5, Lake Michigan was 1 inch higher than it was a year ago. 4 inches higher than it was a year ago. And by the middle of first week of July, they expect it to be another inch higher than it is right now. The good news is, so obviously record setting. Last year we were just under, this year we're over by a little bit. Good news is, if their forecast is accurate, and as Michael said, they've been pretty reasonable with this stuff. They are forecasting a seasonal decline to start in August. Last year, we didn't lose much water at all, so when it started to come up again in the spring, we set records. This year, it looks like it's trending down in a curve that follows what has happened in the last 10, 15 years. So at least it's going in the right direction. This forecast is going in the right direction. But we're going to have this all summer long. No doubt about that. Moving on to new business. At this meeting, we always elect officers, a chairman, and a vice chairman. So I would open the floor for nominations for chairman.
This is Laura on the phone, and I would nominate JB for chairman.
Second?
Fix it in.
The Did you cash that check, Laura?
Yep, thanks. You walk.
There's been a nomination for Bartlett to serve as chairman. Somebody move the nominations be closed.
So moved.
So a motion's been made. Any further discussion? All signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same for opposed. Thank you very much, folks. I appreciate your confidence. It's actually an honor to serve with this group, so I'll try to keep doing my best. I'd open up the floor for nominations for vice chairman. The current vice chairman is not here, so maybe that's a sign.
Sounds like he just volunteered. I will nominate Bill McCullough to serve as vice chair again.
And second by Schiller. Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? I'd entertain a motion that we close the nominations.
So moved.
Thank you.
Someone call Bill.
I'll tell him.
We'll just tell him it was Mike's idea.
That's right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same for opposed. All right, your chairman remains myself, and Bill McCullough stays on as vice chairman. Thank you. Next item on new business is shade sales at the Marina Green Space. And Victor, you or Denny jump on this? Or?
I'll first start just a little bit with the background here. So through some surveys and staff, there was some identified a need for shade at the waterfront park. Several different options were brought up for shade, which included potentially planting trees, putting umbrellas at the tables, or these shade sales, which our Parks Director looked into. We brought this up at two different council meetings. At one of the council meetings, the council seemed to be inclined in favor more for the shade sales than the umbrellas on the tables. So they recommended, though, go to the Planning Commission for a public hearing on the topic, which will look at the shade sales to see if the Planning Commission thinks they should go based on height and aesthetics and other concerns that the public might have, or that we might find in the zoning code. So really this discussion is being brought here for any recommendations or discussion by the Harbor Commission to give to the Planning Commission and their consideration of these shade sales. Whether or not the umbrellas should be a separate discussion, because right now the Harbor, whether we put umbrellas on the tables will be a result of whether we think the shade sales are good to go or not, or shouldn't be there. So I'll let Denny further explain a little bit about these shade sales. I'll just put on the screen, we have potential locations for the shade sales. It should be loading up here any second. But here's a picture of the park. You would have either the shade sales right in this direction or along this direction right here.
Second load up, or I brought some copies.
Yeah, I don't know why it's not. Oh, there you go. I zoomed in. There you go.
Okay, just a couple of things to add on to that. I mean, obviously, this started off, our goal was to create some shaded places for people to eat based upon social distancing needs and the fact that some of our restaurants had to limit some of their seating, to 50%. So Margaret and I worked on this. We had a couple of goals. One was to create an environment so people knew. We picked Marina Park because it's centrally located and it's our jewel. No response on that. Okay. So we tried to create an environment. We wanted to get maximum shade. We wanted to make sure it was manageable. Like, where's the staff? How much time is going to be put into it? We wanted it to be cost effective. And we also did not want to block the view. There's no doubt that putting shades up there is going to block the view. Therefore, we kind of ruled out option C. Option A would be our preferred spot because there's already a little bit of a blockage.
Oh, so you're looking to do just one of these three?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought we were doing the whole thing.
For sure, just one. Myself, Mike, Harbor Master, Lucas, Mark, DDA, we met at the site and talked about where it could be, what we could do. two different methods of installing them. One is using an auger to auger into the ground, less invasive, and then attach your post to that. The posts are 10 foot high. The second choice would be to use sonic tubes and pour actual cement there. But in no way are these meant to be permanent. This is just temporary. If we like this concept, we may, next year, move it to a different park where we have more needs for shelter and stuff. It may or may not be a good fit at Marina Park. Like Victor said, we submitted both options and a council like this Sage Shop.
And to go off of that, the DDA did fundraise money for 7 tables to be located at, metal tables to be located at Marina Park. So that's why these shade sales would theoretically go over those new tables.
And funding for the shade sales
Would come from the general fund.
Yes, Tim.
My comments are from the DDA meeting when this was presented. The meeting, we talked extensively about the sage trails. That picture is not actually what the structure is going to look like, because it's going to be a 4x4 post and not a permanent structure like that. So that was our concern, that it's going to be inexpensive and cheap. I think I don't think that people would be happy with the quality of what's there. And again, I don't want it to look, Harbor Springs to look like it's my backyard with a 4x4 post. And then the expense of these go up drastically if you get a better quality. But the DDA did not like the idea of this, so I think that it should be said at this council meeting that was the DDA's group decision, was this was a cheap rendition of what could be done down there.
Did the DDA have any other suggestions?
The DDA liked the umbrellas. Looking at the logistics of how to do that, we don't have a recommendation. We didn't look into that. The expense of these, I also think that you probably should look at the expense and let people know. I think the whole expense was $1,700 for all of this, where the umbrellas would be, I think, $1,000 each or somewhere around there. So, I mean, there's a drastic cost, but again, I don't want to take our jewel and have it look like it was done like it was in my backyard. Not that I do it cheap in my backyard, but it's not that sounded bad, but not a municipality type of device. So anyway, that was the input from the DDA's meeting, and I think you guys should know that as well, about what everything's going on with that.
Are we not considering the option of trees?
Well, so I can speak to that. The problem with the trees is to get trees that are going to provide temporary shade is going to be several $1,000s just to install those trees that already provide a canopy for shade. So if we're looking at buying trees to provide shade at a reasonable price, though they're going to be able to provide shade at 5-6 years down the road, but not at this moment when we're talking about we need it for the temporary seating.
But they'll probably last for 100 years.
They would, but at the flip side, we might have to, we're looking at potentially redesigning our harbor master building, and that would be redesigning and relocating the park. So we'd have to take those trees out if we're going to be redoing our park space there, our green space. So that's just an added extra expense that we don't have. I don't think we have in our budget to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to provide shade just for this summer. And I think that's where Tim highlighted the point, and that was one of the reasons why council decided at least to look into the shade sales, because it was a more inexpensive option that would provide shade temporarily.
Do you have a cost estimate?
Denny, was it?
Yeah, it depends, like you said, it depends on the shade. We are going, because it is a trial, a pilot, a 1-year thing, we are going cheap. To put the sales are, $150. A mid-grade umbrella, that's the thing, if you get umbrellas, the commercial ones are really expensive. You don't want the cheap ones. A mid-grade umbrella would be about that same cost.
I was just curious if anybody vetted the idea of pergola, something that's like permanent, but yet you could move it to another venue if you needed it later.
That's a really good.
Well, for the purposes of this meeting, the Harbor Commission isn't going to design whatever happens down there. We've been asked to comment on sunshades on this thing. I'll get it started. I applaud the DDA for trying to come up with some way to have more people eat outside, which would generate more satisfaction with our visitors up here, and have the restaurants able, because their seating is limited, to put more meals out the door. All of that stuff I think is great. Shade is nice down there, there's no doubt about it, we don't have any of it. And the suggestion of the sunshade, from my perspective, solves some of those things and maybe creates some others, but locating those at the marina, my concern would be the noise that would be generated with these things when it's windy. We have a night like we had last night, which we have with, seems like more regularity. These things are gonna snap and pop, and nobody down there is gonna be able to sleep if your boat's at the marina. That either means they have to be able to be erected and taken down, which means more staff work and storage and all the other stuff. But that would be my concern with the sunshades on this. Whatever council decides to do is up to council. But if this is their choice, I would be concerned about it personally because of the noise.
I would also be concerned about the winds, the guests that we get up here, that stuff starts moving, and it will move. Those holes that those 4x4s are just augered into are gonna get big, and it's gonna go over. I have a massive trellis work out at my farm, and I use cable in the ground, and just from winds last night, I have 6-inch holes around those cables going into the ground, just from that movement. I'm inland.
Yeah, trying to do something cheap, I think, may not be the right, whatever, they gotta pick the right thing and do it right. Tim's right, that's gonna move. Yes, Michael?
A question and then a comment.
Well,
Question?
I saw some similar design, except they weren't sails. They were not anything that would move, but that it looked like but not on a sailcloth. It's like, and it created a really nice shape, but it's completely out of the price bracket of a sail. And I kind of like what Mr. Brown had to say about doing umbrellas. I think it could solve the problem while we're in this situation right now.
Thanks a lot. Michael?
My question was the location closer to the pier considered? Is there a reason that we were working towards the east? Because all the restaurants are to the west.
Well, I think that option C is actually the best location in terms of creating an environment and people being able to find it. But we chose option A because there's already a restriction of view. There's an 8-foot hedge there. And also that's like where the generators are located. So we thought that that'd be the least disruptive place.
Okay.
And if we put the umbrellas, which was another option we threw out to council, they were going to be in a location where option C is, right along that area.
And the other comment would be, in my travels to marinas, I've seen lots of sail installations and virtually none of them survive. And I'd say that's 20 to 30 installations with 12-inch steel poles and the whole bit. They are extremely difficult to maintain and have survive because the wind will come and tear them apart. So if that's the solution that you want to use, which may be good, you really have to engineer a solution to stay. You can't put 10 stakes in the ground and expect it to stay.
Yeah,
It just won't work.
I mean, you're absolutely correct. We also did want to put a lot of guide wires and make tripping hazards.
No, I know. I mean, it's not an easy problem.
It's not
to
an
solve.
easy task.
The more temporary that post is, the more you're gonna have to stay it, and that means more things in the ground. I think what you're proposing is just unsafe. We get any kind of storm in winter, that stuff is gonna come loose. The sails flap, they're gonna catch more wind, it's gonna just aggravate and come out of the ground.
I think, what else you need to hear from us?
Public comment?
You have a comment?
I'm sorry, I didn't see. Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
Can you give your name for the record, please?
Hi, Sheila Smith, Luplo. We have 141 East Bay Street, right across the water here. But we just finished 6 months of winter. Why can't people just enjoy the summer? And umbrellas, Michael, your staff is gonna have to tie them down every night?
We'd have to remove them and put them somewhere, exactly. And having seen what happened in Dudley's Deck last night, in the middle of that 46-mile-an-hour blow, there were umbrellas all over the place, even the ones that were folded up. So,
There's Josh Baker on the DDA said, why don't, we already have the picnic tables purchased, for the money for them. We can put the picnic tables there, gives people someplace to sit and enjoy the sun. So that was another comment from the DDA as well. And then think about it more and take take some time to figure out how we're gonna get shaded if we are.
Rhonda Trozak, I agree.
I like that
with
idea.
Fred, I don't know what's wrong with trees. Trees would add to the environment. They're a lot more aesthetically pleasant. They actually help the environment rather than hurt it. And a lot healthier to have trees around and more poles and strings and sails.
You can take these comments back to council. Victor, I don't think you need any more action from us, do you?
No, I think we have the comments that the plan commission, the council would like to see. Just one public comment on YouTube. I saw John Leo. I agree with JB. Whatever we do should be done right. Council did not approve a cheap solution. So, and it just may be, just for the record here, that, you know, this was, the reason we went this direction was because we're trying to solve an immediate need with the restaurants having less capacity to provide outdoor diners a place to eat. So we're trying to expedite a solution, but just going back to the trees are going to be more of a permanent solution, but we can't be there yet without knowing if we're going to change this park design or not, based on building the Harbor Master building.
Well, you can do part of it. We just need to keep that southeast corridor
Yeah.
open in case things change.
Exactly.
So we could still move forward, just not in that area. Any other comments from the table regarding this? Any public comment that called in that we were not able to hear? Let's move on to the next item in new business then, the Harbor Master update. Michael?
We've already covered a couple of
Or should I
items.
say Mr. Carpenter Johnson?
Exactly.
Union card carrying Carpenter Johnson.
God, I wish I'd be getting paid more. We've already covered the electrical pedestal installations. JB's talked about the high water forecast, and to help with the high water forecast, we've raised 7 docks to 4 out in front of the office, or up an 18 inches, close to what Michael managed to do with his dock down at Irish. And then I also raised 4 docks along the north wall of the basin using 2x6, which is what we talked about at the April meeting. I think they look pretty good. We've gotten a lot of good comments from them so far. It's been a long process, but having the girls back to work really helped out a lot because they finished off the last 2 docks for me, which was great. Along with that, the girls have been busy cleaning the place up, getting the place ready to go. We've taken care of as many power poles as we can with bug spray and try to keep those clean. And that's really about it for an update. The dock was the biggest part for us. So.
And I would just like to comment, you saw in your packet, Harbor Master Johnson provided me with an email list of the social distancing measures that and precautions that are being placed at the Harbor Master building this year. So they do have a plan.
We're kind of waiting on, I think the yacht club maybe too, waiting to see what happens on the 30th, which I guess is when the next executive order may come through, if not sooner. We're right now trying to make sure that the girls and any customers that come in the office stay 6 feet apart. Customers are required to wear a mask when they're in the building. We have masks for them to use. I've provided the girls with these buffs so they can roll up and not have to scramble for a paper mask when folks are in the office. We're paying as much attention as we can to both the Ford Park bathrooms and also the bathrooms behind us at the public restrooms at the marina. We sanitize any surface that a customer touches or that we touch in the process of any business in the building. Masks are encouraged when the girls are out in the dock, but not required. We're not quite sure how that's going to work out as soon as it starts to see voters. We're going to have to work around that one. So, and that's where we're at. Go ahead, Dick.
You gonna have any of the rendezvous this year?
Yes. Well, Regatta's up to 100 boats right now.
Yeah.
Which is
Wasn't there biking or something?
Grosse Pointe Yacht Club. They had originally approached just about 25 boats. It's swelled to 37 boats right now, which is a lot. And they're fully committed to being up here. They're going to use the end of the dock for a cocktail party on Friday night. They made arrangements with the Nubs for a pretty good sized bash out there, which is going to be pretty cool for them. And then they're here that Wednesday, the 5th or the 7th, so that everybody clears up by the weekend. And right now they're at 37. We're going to share that load as much as we can with Wallstrom's. Split things up a little bit because 25 boats is about as many as we can handle and still be able to take care of smaller boats on the east dock.
Dan, any news from the yacht club about the status of Regatta now that Chicago's been canceled?
I know that the yacht club is still excited to run the event and is hoping that they're allowed to under state and any other restrictions. And I think as long as they're allowed to, they'll run a regatta for anybody who wants to come and see.
Very cool. I'm still looking for committee people, sending out surveys for committee people.
I'd also like to mention that Ford Park bathrooms have been upgraded, cleaned, painted, thanks to DPW and our Parks Director. So you check those out sometime. They look nice.
So today, Denny, the east door was open, but the west door wasn't. Is that the typical MO there?
Yes.
That west door accesses the old office space.
Oh, into the south part of it. So
Where the
maybe,
historical
do
society.
we put a sign there that
Not
says
an exit or something?
bathroom access opposite side of building or something? Chief and I were stymied. I was stymied. You probably knew.
We lock it, so, yeah.
Well, there's actually virtually no signage for those bathrooms.
Yeah,
If we're
anyway.
thinking about it, there's a little sign over the door and no one would ever know they're there. So if you're thinking about signage, something on the sidewalk or anything to improve it.
There's actually two signs. There's one up on the top and then there's one actually on the door.
Right,
But
but
even-
someone walking down the sidewalk or from the lawn trip has no idea those are bathrooms.
Yeah, maybe something that goes on the Ford Park sign that's out on Bay Street, public restrooms inside.
I can live with that.
Couple of comments before we adjourn. Our buoy 45002 is not in the water yet. As you can imagine, the launch date's been postponed. The group still intends to try and get it into the lake by the end of this month. They're working on it. As soon as something happens, we'll let you know what's going on with that. And also, you've probably seen the barge down at Ford Park in its new location with Wallstrom Dock and Dredge. So we'll keep an eye on it this summer, see where that goes. Part of their deal is they're supposed to put the boom down at night. We're on this side of the bay. They've been pretty good about that, but I have seen one night where they haven't. So Michael's been watching and we'll try and make that as unobtrusive as possible as we move forward. Any other? Yes, Chief.
Maybe I just about the blessing of the fleet. Did you discuss the blessing of the fleet?
Other than what I read in the paper.
It's gonna be July 2nd. I'm semi on the committee. It's gonna be Thursday night, July 2nd. Same night as Music in the Street. Anticipate a relatively large crowd.
Of boaters.
Correct. Nothing on the dock, nothing on the
Yes.
shore, no band or anything like that.
Yeah.
And actually, the parade or whatever, the route is gonna be extended all the way down Week from what, so that we can hopefully, social distance further.
Okay. Great. No other business. Our next meeting is July, second Tuesday, July 8th, here at 4 o'clock, I think. That
Yep.
makes sense. Usually it's the second Tuesday of the month.
Second
Or
Wednesday, second Wednesday, yeah, July 8th.
Anyway, you'll see it in your packet. But if there's no further business, I'd entertain, yes,
Just a quick question. You mentioned curves at Ford Park. What's the plan? What's the schedule for that? Is that soon or?
Danny?
Yeah.
That was kind of news to me.
Well, obviously it's pretty swampy down there. And what's happening is, it's pretty easy for somebody to try and drive around somebody and then either get stuck in the mud or tear up the grass they're trying to grow. So I was gonna meet with Lucas and see if we could do something about just putting some temporary bumpers there to keep people off.
When people are in line to launch their boats, the car can't get past.
Right.
So that's just not gonna work.
Right.
Because the people that park in this individual car lots, whether they're kayaking or whatever, can't get out.
You know, we could stripe the perimeter there with, you know, like as a passing lane, that would give a boater a chance to know that this is, somebody can pass you, so to stay to the right.
There's physically not enough room to do that without going on the grass.
Right, well, and
It depends on the
Anyway, you
size
can
of the
look at it,
boat.
but that would be my concern.
yeah, but if they drive on the grass with a big boat, they're gonna sink and get stuck because of the high water and it's a swamp.
No, it's
So
not the
the
boat I'm
property-
worried about, because the boat pulls to the right. It's the car that's gonna
Right.
pass on the left. Anyways, because right now that concrete's gonna get busted up if they continue to do what they're doing, so it's.
Which is why
The long range,
thinking about doing this curving on it.
right, the long range plan would be to have a, you know, a wider road with a bigger radius. That would be where we're headed, but just to get us through. And a lot of it is facilitated by high water. You know, the water's just got no place to go, so it's just sitting there. I can't see it drying out anytime soon.
It won't be, whatever it is, maybe it won't be permanent. If it isn't working, we'll do something else.
Yeah, no, that's gonna be it. I just ran into it the other day. Yeah. Like,
an
I was
issue
in the
with-
truck, in the car, there's a little truck, and then you just can't get by. There's no room.
The bigger the boat on the trailer, the harder this is gonna be, there's no doubt about that. So, we'll see what happens. All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Great. Thank you very much for coming, and we'll see you next July.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thanks.